My daddy uses Anchor to publish his podcast, and he loves it. Not only can he record, edit, and distribute on this platform, but he can make money at the same time, all for free. If you too would like to get started on your own podcast, go to the website anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Let's go!
Welcome to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to open dialogue regarding the difficult topics that we all face in life. I am your host, Marcus Callahan, and thank you very much for joining me this evening. Welcome back to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast. I had some technical difficulties last week uploading the episode, so I do apologize for that, but I am back this week, and the episode that I did have planned for last week will debut next week instead, because it has been a crazy and hectic last couple of weeks between my family's move into our new home and this entire coronavirus pandemic that is going on. Things in America have just gotten a wee bit out of control. And that is really saying something, considering we pretty much live in an out-of-control state at all times. The one thing that has amazed me throughout this entire ordeal, though, is the fact that people seem to just now be realizing the value of washing one's hands. Like it's some brand new concept or something. You know, a wise man by the name of Davante Adams said it best. Wash your butts, wash your hands, and we'll be just fine. Words to live by, ladies and gentlemen. Words to live by. I actually refused to take this virus seriously when I first heard about it. Because, for one, it's a ridiculous name. And two, we've had major sickness scares in the past that all turned out to be not as bad as what the media made it out to be. But to those who are infected and to those who have been affected by this crisis, I do feel for you. These are tough times for a lot of people. And this could just be because I'm only 30 years old, but I don't remember the Ebola virus or SARS virus leading whole businesses to shut down. The NBA just announced earlier this week that they are suspending their season due to one player having the virus. And they aren't alone. The NHL has suspended their season, the MLB has postponed their season, and even Disney has shut down its parks and businesses, which in turn will lead to a bunch of people not being able to work and provide for their families. This is happening all over the country to multiple jobs and businesses, which brings me to today's topic, which is, what is it like being poor in America? America has always had a bad reputation for not taking care of its own people. There are countless people who are homeless, most of which who are veterans. So many people go uninsured every year, or they have to ration their medications just because they can't afford to have the necessary amount of supplies. It's really quite maddening when you consider that we live in, quote unquote, the richest country in the world. In fact, 27.5 million people are currently uninsured in America, and 26,000 people die annually due to lack of health care. That's 26,000 lives lost yearly because they cannot afford health care. If that alone does not anger you, then there is something seriously wrong. Every day, there are people who forego buying groceries because they cannot afford to. Nearly 36,000 Americans are currently on SNAP and receive benefits for food or cash assistance. And of course, there are people who abuse that system, no doubt. But there are also people who genuinely cannot afford to put groceries in their homes, and they actually need that assistance. I say all of this so that I can try to paint a picture of just how bad it's gotten in America for lower and middle class citizens. I have a clip that I'm going to play for you guys that is roughly 5 minutes long, so bear with me, but it's just a small glimpse into what it's like to be poor in America. Take a listen.
In Southern California, the sun rises over San Diego Bay. Next to a major road in this parking lot, 54-year-old Maria begins her day.
Straighten my bed.
This car is her home.
This is every day. This routine about stretching my bed.
Maria no longer has a place to live. She's been sleeping in her van for a year now.
Looks pretty nice. You don't see, it doesn't seem that you live here, but you do. I have seen people with their cars so messy and things all over the place, and how can I go to work with my life like that? I mean, it has to have a little order, you know, because it's what we need to continue. It's not that perfect, but it's the way I want, and makes me feel better.
Just like Maria, around 30 other people sleep overnight in their cars in this free parking lot. Nevertheless, most of them work. They are security guards, Uber drivers, secretaries, or even computer technicians. Maria is a cleaner and a carer. Exhausting work that she does 7 days a week. To provide some comfort for all these people, an organization has supplied them with a water point, portable toilets, and a small outdoor kitchen, where Maria prepares her morning coffee before going to work.
This kind of bulletproof coffee. It's very famous in the United States.
Maria's fall from grace is a situation that affects thousands of other Americans. For a long time, she had everything she always wanted. She was married and lived in this beautiful house. But after 5 years of living together, her blissful marriage suddenly fell apart.
He kind of dumped me. He said, okay, it didn't work, bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye, see you later. I said, what? No, I don't have a place, no home. I'm a homeless. No bed, no furniture, no house, so it's just my car. I have a seat here. And yeah, that's the way it is.
Maria preferred to leave everything to her ex-husband and turn over a new leaf. But over the last several years in California, the cost of rent has risen so much that her salary, the equivalent of 1,500 euros, was not enough for her to afford an apartment. Maria is just one of many middle-class Americans who have, in recent years, fallen into poverty. Officially, America is great again. Since the 2008 crisis, the economy has never been stronger, with record-breaking growth. And unemployment has dropped to a historical low, less than 4%. An upturn for which Donald Trump has claimed all the credit.
There has never been a better time to start living the American dream.
But despite what the president claims, the famous American dream is far from being achieved. 40 million people are living below the poverty line, and millions of workers will go to great lengths to stay above it.
To get money, are you familiar with plasma? You give, okay. I do that twice a week.
Becoming homeless overnight is what these Americans fear most, because here, the system is not very kind to those short of cash.
You better catch up real quick, or you're can have a judgment of possession against you and get evicted.
In some states, being late on your rent is no laughing matter.
Sheriff's office.
One by one, tenants are evicted at gunpoint.
Where am I going to sleep? I can sleep in the hotel if I need to.
For these Americans on the verge of ruin, seeking medical treatment can cost a fortune.
It's hard to eat and take your medicine too, because you may not get one or the other.
So some people are standing up in solidarity, making sure they're taken care of free of charge in field hospitals, not unlike those found in a country at war. An insight into the lives of those who cannot scrape a living in the heart of destitute America.
It really is a shame that this type of living is growing more and more common in the U.S. And not everyone has a vehicle to sleep in. There are thousands of humans who have had to find shelter wherever they can. And we see it all the time, from people living under the underpass or sleeping on bus benches. And I'm sure if most of us could help them in some way, we would. But for the majority of America, we only make enough to support us and our families. And sometimes that isn't even enough. You know, a common argument when it comes to immigration is that America needs to help its own first before reaching out a helping hand to other people. And I agree with that to an extent. But the problem is, this issue could be solved if the government really wanted it solved. There are enough vacant homes in the U.S. for everyone to be housed. But good old capitalism won't stand for that. Fact of the matter is, our government has failed us on numerous occasions. They have the means to end the suffering for so many people, but they choose not to, mainly due to their own misguided self-interest. Earlier this week, I came across a video of a woman pleading her case to a room full of Congress members about the poverty line and how difficult it is for working Americans to get by nowadays. And it broke my heart. I'm going to play this clip for you guys, and I want you to just listen to the pain in her voice and the struggle it takes to make it through her entire speech.
Good morning. My name is Amy Jo Hutchison. I'm a single mom of two who's lived in West Virginia all my life. I'm also a community organizer for West Virginia Healthy Kids and Families, Our Future West Virginia, where I organize and advocate for poor and marginalized folks. Today I'm here to help you better understand poverty, because poverty is my lived experience. And I'm also here to acknowledge the biased beliefs that poor people are lazy and that poverty is their fault. But how do I make you understand things like working full-time for $10 an hour is only about $19,000 a year, even though it's well above the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour? I want to tell you about a single mom I met who was working at a gas station. She was promoted to manager, and within 30 days, she had to report her new income to DHHR. Within 60 days, her rent bumped from $475 to $950 a month. She lost her SNAP benefits and her family's health insurance. So she did what poor people are forced to do all the time. She resigned her promotion and went back to working part-time just so she and her family could survive. Another single mom I know encouraged her kids to get jobs. For her DHR review, she had to claim their income as well. She lost her SNAP benefits and her insurance. So she weaned herself off of her blood pressure medicines because she, working full-time in a bank and part-time at a shop on the weekends, couldn't afford to buy them. Eventually, the girls quit their jobs because their part-time fast food income was literally killing their mother. You see, the thing is, children aren't going to escape poverty as long as they're relying on a head household, who was poor. Poverty rolls off the backs of parents and right onto the shoulders of our children, despite how hard we try. I can tell you about my own with food insecurity. The nights I went to bed hungry so my kids could have seconds, and I was employed full-time as a Head Start teacher. I can tell you about being above the poverty guideline, nursing my gallbladder with essential oils and prayer, chewing on cloves and eating ibuprofen like they're Tic Tacs because I don't have health insurance and I can't afford a dentist. I have 2 jobs and a bachelor's degree, and I struggle to make ends meet. The federal poverty guidelines say that I'm not poor, but I cashed in a jar full of change the other night so my daughter could attend a high school band competition with her band. I can't go grocery shopping without a calculator. I had to decide which bills not to pay to be here in this room today. Believe me, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps so many damn times that I've ripped them off. The current poverty guidelines are ridiculously out of touch. The poverty line for a family of 3 is $21,720. Where I live, because of the oil and gas boom, a 3-bedroom home rents for $1,200 a month. So if I made $22,000 a year, which could disqualify me from assistance, I would have $8,000 left to raise 2 children and myself on. And yet the poverty guidelines wouldn't classify me as poor. I Googled Congressman's salary the other day, and according to Senate.gov, the salary for senators, representatives, and delegates is $174,000 a year. So a year of work for you is the equivalent of almost 4 years of work for me, and I'm $24,000 above the federal poverty guidelines definition of poor. It would take 9 people working full-time for a year at $10 an hour to match y'all's salary. I also read that each senator is authorized $40,000 for state office furniture and furnishings, and this amount is increased each year to reflect inflation. That $40,000 a year for furniture is $360 more than the federal poverty guidelines for a family of 7. And yet here I am, begging you on behalf of the 15 million children living in poverty in the United States, on behalf of the 1 in 3 kids under the age of 5, and nearly 100,000 children in my state of West Virginia living in poverty, to not change anything about these federal poverty guidelines until you can make them relevant and reflect what poverty really looks like today. You have a $40,000 furniture allotment. West Virginia has a median income of $43,000 and some change. People are working full-time and are hungry. Kids are about to be kicked off the free and reduced lunch rolls because of changes y'all want to make to SNAP. Even though 62% of West Virginia SNAP recipients are families with children, the very same children who cannot take a part-time job because their parents will die without insurance. People are working full-time in this country for very little money. They're not poor enough to get help. They don't make enough to get by. They're working while they're rationing their insulin, and they're skipping their meds because they can't afford food and health care at the same time. So shame on you. Shame on you, and shame on me, and shame on each and every one of us who haven't rattled the windows of these buildings with cries of outrage at a government that thinks their office furniture is worthy of $40,000 a year and families and children aren't. I'm not asking you to apologize for your privilege, but I'm asking you to see past it. There are 46 million Americans living in poverty, doing the best they know how with what they have, and we, in defense of children and families, cannot accept anything less from our very own government. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson.
I don't understand how anyone could hear something like that and think that things in America are great again. Great for who? Sure as hell aren't the millions of Americans who barely make it above the poverty line so that they don't qualify for assistance. And yet our government would like us to believe that they're doing all that they can for us. When people who give their blood, sweat, and tears to a corporation that wouldn't hesitate to replace them in an instant are going without their basic needs, it's time to start holding those in charge accountable. I, for one, am tired of being told to pull myself up by the bootstraps. It doesn't work in an economy and system that is designed to keep the rich rich and the poor poorer. The rent prices are increasing monthly. The prices for food and medication are constantly on the rise. And unless this economy starts to reflect what the majority of Americans face each day, things will only get worse. So what can we do? Well, for starters, we need to vote out all of the old rich men in Congress who are in favor of the way things are because it keeps their pockets fat. That's first most. Secondly, we need to put people in office who actually care and take the job of civil servant seriously. We need affordable health care for all, not free, affordable. We need affordable housing for all as well. If just those two things were the only things to change, America would be better off. It would increase the quality of life for so many people around this country who are fighting to survive. But we can do better. We need a universal basic income. I truly believe that every adult in this country should have a basic income to help supplement their wages. And it's more than possible. Andrew Yang has proven that to us. Not only would it help alleviate the pressure that most Americans feel, but it would allow for many Americans to actually be able to spend money on things that aren't basic necessity. That would actually help our economy grow. There is so much more that can be said about this topic, but I want to stop here, and I want to do a part 2 to this episode, and I'd love to be joined by 2 or 3 guests who would also like to discuss this topic and any ideas they may have. So please reach out to me if you'd be interested in discussing this with me on a future episode. All right, let's wrap this up. I would like to thank you all for listening and for your continued support. This is a topic that many Americans have to deal with, and I hope that the takeaway after listening to this is that for many Americans, the American dream is just that, a dream. Once again, I am your host, Marcus Callahan. Thank you again for listening to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast. If you'd like to be a guest, please reach out to me on social media. I can be reached at Twitter, Instagram, at third_eye_podcast. You can go to my website and you can reach me there as well, or you can reach me on Facebook. I'm always open for discussion, always open to hearing new perspectives. Please remember, guys, love each other, be kind to one another, and have a wonderful night. Thank you.